If you were standing on London Bridge in January in the year 1316, the cold would not be the first thing you noticed. You would see the river first, the broad brown sweep of the Thames moving sluggishly beneath you, its edges filmed with ice where boats nudged against the wharves. You would smell the city next. Smoke lay over London like a second lower sky, pressed down by damp winter air. It seeped from roof vents and shutters, clung to wool cloaks, and mixed with the smell of fish, offal, tallow, mud, and human waste. Only after a few minutes would you begin to feel it properly. The cold that came not as a dramatic gust, but as a slow intrusion. It crept through leather shoes from the planks underfoot. It slid down the back of your neck. It entered your lungs in thin, sharp drafts. Winter in medieval London was not a picturesque inconvenience. It was a problem of physics, biology, architecture, and supply. It tested the city's food networks, its fuel reserves, its housing design, and the resilience of the human body. By the early 14th century, Europe was entering a period of climatic instability associated with the early phase of the Little Ice Age. Summers became wetter, harvests less reliable, and winters more penetratingly damp. In 1315, relentless rainfall destroyed crops across much of northern Europe. Grain rotted before harvest. Hay failed. Livestock starved. This crisis began the Great Famine of 1315-1317. London depended on food produced elsewhere. When regional harvests failed, prices soared. Wheat doubled or tripled in cost. For the urban poor, who spent much of their income on bread, this was catastrophic. Cold alone rarely kills healthy adults. Malnutrition does. When calorie intake falls while the body needs more energy to maintain temperature, immune systems weaken and disease spreads more easily. Most ordinary Londoners lived in timber-framed houses filled with wattle and daub. These walls trapped some air and provided limited insulation, but heat loss remained constant. Windows were often simple shuttered openings. Glass was rare and expensive. Interiors followed exterior temperatures closely, moderated only by the hearth. The hearth was central to survival. Smoke escaped through roof vents rather than chimneys. This preserved timbers but filled rooms with particulate pollution. Modern science shows that wood smoke contains fine particles and carbon monoxide. In enclosed winter conditions, respiratory stress would have increased significantly. The body loses heat through conduction, convection, radiation, and evaporation. Medieval strategies aimed to reduce these losses through layering and shared indoor space. Linen undergarments beneath wool outer layers trapped air. Wool retained insulating properties even when damp, a crucial advantage in London's humid winters. Crowding indoors conserved heat. Multiple bodies in confined space generated warmth, yet crowding also increased the transmission of respiratory diseases. Heated stones or bricks wrapped in cloth were placed in beds. Thermal mass allowed these objects to store and gradually release heat through the night. Fuel was essential. Woodland near London had been heavily exploited. Firewood was costly and increasingly supplemented with sea coal. Coal burned hotter but produced thick sulfurous smoke. The trade-off between warmth and air quality shaped winter survival. Food preservation determined endurance. Grain was stored in barrels for bread and pottage. Meat and fish were salted or smoked to last through the cold months. Ale provided hydration and calories. Fermentation reduced microbial contamination compared to untreated water. Fresh fruits and vegetables were scarce in winter. Reduced micronutrient intake weakened immune systems, increasing vulnerability to infection. Winter altered behavior. Doors and shutters stayed closed. Ventilation dropped, smoke accumulated. Respiratory pathogens spread more easily. Later in the century, the Black Death would devastate London. But even before plague, winter illnesses likely caused significant mortality. The River Thames was London's artery, bringing grain, fish, and fuel. Severe cold could disrupt river traffic and tighten supply chains. Urban work continued through winter, but construction slowed. Casual laborers often faced reduced income during the coldest months. Less income meant less food precisely when caloric demand was highest. Winter was economically constricting. Wealthier households possessed better clothing, larger hearths, and greater food stores. Yet even stone houses were cold without continuous heating. Short daylight hours affected mood and rhythm. Medieval people marked time with feast days and communal gatherings to endure the long darkness. Storytelling, music, and games structured winter evenings. Social cohesion improved survival odds in times of scarcity. In ordinary years, these systems held together. In extraordinary years, such as during the Great Famine, they failed.
There is naught left.
When harvests collapsed and livestock died, no amount of careful fuel management could compensate for empty granaries. Crime rose. Desperation increased.
Do try, husband.
Mortality climbed. Winter exposed the fragility of urban dependence on rural supply. Preparation began months in advance. Firewood had to be gathered. Grain had to be stored securely against damp and vermin. Clothing required maintenance and repair. Social relationships mattered because mutual aid could bridge temporary shortages. Survival depended on the interaction between environment and planning. It was cumulative, practical, and precarious. The difference lies in insulation, medicine, and reliable supply chains. Medieval Londoners relied on firelight, salted meat, layered wool, and hope. Winter in medieval London was managed day by day through preparation, resilience, and fragile systems that sometimes, but not always, held.
"10, 11. Only 11 loaves left until the next baking. God help us."
If you've stayed with this winter in 1316, I'd really like to know what you think. Did anything about medieval London's struggle during the Great Famine surprise you? Was it the quiet tension in the markets, the thinning food stores, or the way cold and hunger layered on top of each other? Leave a comment below and tell me which detail struck you most, or which part of daily life you'd like to explore more deeply. And what should we step into next? Another medieval crisis in London. The Black Death as it first entered the city, a freezing winter on the Thames during the Little Ice Age, or perhaps the Great Fire and how ordinary people rebuilt their lives afterwards. Let me know what you'd like to see next, and we'll continue the journey through London's past together.